Hello, Charles County. Welcome back to another episode of Cracking the Code, a chance where we talk about all things related to codes, permits, planning, growth in Charles County. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Doria Fleisher with the Media Division, and I am joined, as always, by the most amazing co-host, Liz Theobalds.
And thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for being here, Liz. Deputy County Attorney.
That's me.
And Liz, happy Cracking the Code anniversary, because I feel like I say this a lot, but you had reached out to me one December, I think it was 2 Decembers ago, and said, why are we not talking to people on the podcast about zoning and codes and permits? And I was like, we can, and you can be the one to do it. So
thank you.
A good holiday gift from a couple of years ago, Liz. And just remember that sometimes when you give a gift, it becomes a burden on the person who gives it. So
no burden in providing information is our job. So
good.
I'm perfectly happy to do it. And thank you for setting it up.
Well, I love that you're here. We're also joined by Tony Feltz, who's our, I say new, 2 months in, Assistant Chief of Planning. Thanks for being here, Tony.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you agreed to do this, which is a good sign already that you're willing to come on and do this stuff with us.
Nervous.
You already No, you got this. But you already get the gold star in my book of you were willing to come in and do this, because so much of your role is going to be about understanding the community, working with the community, figuring out Charles County and where it is and where it's going to go. Yeah?
Absolutely.
So talk to us a little bit about who you are, Tony, and how you got here. Little old me.
Well, y'all can probably tell from my accent, I am not from Maryland. But as I say in Texas, I got here as fast as I could. I grew up in South Alabama, started my career in planning there in my kind of adopted hometown, the city of Mobile, Alabama. And, after there, I spent about 10 years in Texas, in San Antonio, Texas, the nation's 7th largest city, doing all things planning, zoning, policy, legislative. And then my other half and I were looking for a little change in lifestyle. And we thought, we love Colorado. Mm-hmm. It's so much fun to visit. And so I had an opportunity to go to Colorado. We moved to Colorado. And, it was that first winter in Colorado that I said, yeah, no. This
does not feel like we're not in Alabama anymore, Toto.
And so what brought me to Maryland was that I actually married a Marylander. So we came back home, as it were. Awesome. And it's been great ever since. I tell people this all the time. They don't believe me, but this part of Maryland reminds me of home a lot. Good people, good food, nice weather. So what's not to like?
All the good stuff. I also really appreciate, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody with such a drawl say the word, like I would say a Marylander, and the way you say Marylander, I'm going to try to mimic it, Tony, because that makes us sound very I feel like it has a whole new aura of specialness to this. So
start a new trend.
We'll start a new trend. Well, we're thrilled that you're here. And I think, we throw the word in local government, we throw the word planning and planner around a lot. If you were presenting to a 5th grade class of students at Career Day, what is a planner? What does a planner do?
So that's a great question. What I would say is we are kind of midwives for the community's vision. We listen to all the feedback from our residents, our business community, our local elected leaders, and we kind of distill all of that feedback into a vision of what the community, what the players in the community want to see. So that's part one. And then part two is we take that vision and through our codes, our ordinances, our policy direction, we help facilitate that vision and bring it to fruition. Hopefully, that's the plan.
That's the plan. I appreciate
That's the plan of the planners.
Right, the plan of the planners. That when government works, that's how it works. Exactly. Yeah. And so in this role of Assistant Chief of Planning, what are and I'm going to put you on the spot, give me the top 3 or the top 5 things that means. So when I look at your position description, this is what you're doing.
Other duties as a
Yes. Welcome to working in local government, whatever comes up at the moment.
No, what I would say is it helps bring some overall direction to the planning section.
Okay.
We, we're kind of divided into 4 groups. We've got our environmental folks. We've got our long-range folks, and, they handle historic land acquisition, things like that. We've got our folks that handle subdivisions, and we've got our folks that handle zoning. And most of the time, if somebody is coming in to get a permit or to open a business, they're going to be dealing with our zoning folks. So my job is to kind of help bridge the gap between all 4 of those divisions, kind of set some overall policy tones, ensure that the work is getting done, ensure that we're giving great customer service to the residents of Charles County and the business community here in Charles County. And then also just kind of seeing and helping guide what works, what doesn't work, and trying to help smooth things out a little bit. That's the way that I view a leader. I don't have to be up front all the time. It's really just, when you're making a cake and you first put the icing on there and it's all lumpy and it's and then you take that knife. I'm the knife.
You're smoothing it all out.
Smoothing it all out.
You clearly know what my algorithm sometimes feeds me on Instagram, where I find myself staring like, why am I watching this cake video for so long? But it's very from kind of messy to that finished look. You're taking all those components. And Liz, you and I were talking earlier about, you've been in Charles County a while now, Liz.
Yes.
How many years in your role here?
32.
So from Tony's 2 months to your 32 years, what would you explain when you hear, I was thinking about those 4 divisions, that it's the historic, it's the subdivision, it's making sure that we're protecting the environment, it's all of these pieces. What would you want Tony to know about Charles County and how those, what's your take as a mentor and kind of the history of Charles County built into 32 years? What does he need to know about our county and zoning to be successful?
Now, in the 2 months that I've worked with him, it seems like Tony
He's already got it.
A lot of the things that make Charles County unique and very special to so many of us.
Awesome.
We have a unique mix of more intense development. We have rural areas. We have areas that are really water-based. And all of those things are the fabric of what it is that makes Charles County. And I do believe that he really has embraced a lot of it. He's willing to listen. He understands how it is that those 4 sections that he was just describing within planning and growth management have to work together to meet the needs of the community.
Because this is a unique, that if we only focus on the subdivisions, we've ignored our folks that are preserving rural land. But if we only focus on the rural land, we ignore the fact that there's all these people there's a lot of components here. Yeah.
And I think he's coming in at the right time, Tony. I think you really are, because as I look over the 32 years that I've lived in the county, and even just having the 15 years in this particular role that I'm doing, there have been so many changes. We've had an influx of so many people, and they really do need to know that there is somebody out there who understands how things have to work together, so that what it is that they encounter when they get to the county, and what it is that they want to do to make their castle is something it is that fits into where we do our zoning.
And Charles County is so diverse, right? You have Waldorf, which is, your suburban environment, kind of has some more denser areas. And then the further south you get, and even the further west you get, the more rural it gets, until it's super, super rural. And one thing that I didn't mention is I live here in Southern Maryland, and Charles County is my community. So it's really a privilege to be able to help plan and guide the growth in the community in which I live, work, and play. And, I don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
Because that's super important. It's not just, it's my community as well as everyone in Charles County.
You're making decisions that impact your household as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I always joke about, do you remember the commercial of, and not only am I the president of the Hair Club for Men, but I'm a member also. But it is. I think there's something to be said for I'm not just making these decisions. That was not a pointed comment, Tony. That had nothing. I'm not. For our podcast listeners, I know our viewers on YouTube can see, but I want our podcast listeners to know that was in no way a pointed comment towards Tony. But no, I think there's value in. These are not decisions for them. These are decisions for us. We are that's all.
Charles County has so much to offer. It's, when I drive on the highways and byways of the county, and I see things like the rail trail, and which I've been on with my family on our bikes, and just those types of amenities, being able to have a oneness with nature, that's something that you can't get everywhere in this region, and it's such a value. Or even, going up to some of the protected areas along the Potomac and just being able to enjoy nature. Or at the same time, you have all the shopping that you could want in Waldorf, or some really nice restaurants. And I'm not going to name names because that would probably be politics. But, as you could, for the people that can see me, I love to eat. And so it's nice to have those options. So it's a really great balance here.
I think we've got the best of a lot of worlds. So
really
I'm
do.
glad you agree. I'm glad we're all on the same page here. It would be terrible in the middle of podcast. Tony was like, you know what, actually, this isn't for me. I gotta be going. So I'm really glad we got over that bump. Now we can move forward. Tony, what are you most excited about in your role coming up? So I know you talked about being the kind of the midwife of county planning, and I love that metaphor. What do you hope this baby comes out and does?
So there's two initiatives that I'm really excited about right now. One is the update to the comprehensive plan. State law requires us to do that every 10 years, and the comprehensive plan was last updated in 2016. So we're right at the 10-year mark. And so we're embarking on that process. We're in 2026, which can't believe it's just a few weeks away.
Around the corner.
But we're really going to start in earnest our public input sessions and really listening to our public, our focus groups, to understand, if over the 10 years, what we thought we were doing with the vision is still the right vision. And then going kind of hand in hand with that, we're working on our zoning code update. And that's really exciting. It's a lot of fun. I'm kind of a code nerd a little bit. I'm one of those people. I was talking, Liz, we were talking about that yesterday.
I almost went to law school.
Yeah, I thought about it, but then I thought, you know what? $150,000 more in student loan debt is just not
worth it. Yeah.
But so those are the things that I'm excited about. And what's really nice about those two initiatives is that they really do touch every person, every business in Charles County. And it's really important that we have the community coming out and telling us, frankly, what they feel.
Right.
Because, if everything's roses and kittens, we're going to think everything's roses and kittens and keep moving forward. But, we want to hear the nitty gritty. We want to hear what's not working. We want to hear what the residents have to say to us. And, our job is not to tell them back that, no, they don't know what they're talking about. Our job is to say, okay, we're hearing that. Here's how we can try to fix it.
Right. And Liz, you've brought up this point in other episodes of Cracking the Code, and you even brought it up today of that step one is kind of understanding what exists so that before you assume that you can do something, what you can do.
You have to have the feedback.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it sounds like there's this kind of natural fit of being able to say, this is what our zoning code currently does. Please don't invest in something. You talked about that from buying a home to starting your business. Don't invest until you know that you can actually do this legally.
Right.
And then it sounds like, Tony, is a chance for people who have been telling Liz that's not fair or that's not right or I don't like that or why did you tell me that? This is a chance for them to say, I'd rather have this. Is that an accurate statement,
I think
Liz?
that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
Because now that with that input, we can go ahead and say, wait a second, these are the needs of the community. We can go ahead and incorporate some of these suggestions for our policymakers to see how it is that where and how the county is supposed to grow and develop, what things it is that should be done in a certain area, what things shouldn't be done in an area.
Right.
And I've got a little exercise for it.
I'm ready.
I want you to think back to what you were doing in 1992.
Okay.
And I'll start. I was in the 7th grade. I was 12 years old. And so I was watching cartoons and being a rowdy 7th grader.
Okay.
So 1992, more than, 30 some odd years?
I was going to say, please don't make me do the math.
Yeah,
It took me long enough to figure out how old I was in 92. I'm very young. I was only 9. I'm practically a child.
So, and here's another one. In 1992, the population of Waldorf was 15,000 people, just over 15,000 people.
And today,
It's right around 81,000 people.
I mean, that's
And just in Waldorf.
crazy jump. And that's just
in Waldorf.
Right.
Yeah. The population of Charles County was right at 101,000. Today, we're at 171,000 and climbing. And I say 1992, and I throw those out. That 1992 was the last time our zoning ordinance was comprehensively updated.
So it's interesting when I think about that, in 1992, the internet was different.
There wasn't.
I couldn't go online and shop. Whereas now we've got these small businesses that are saying, I want to be able to do a cottage and everything's different. Our ability to navigate and drive and telework. So when people are looking for different things in the county, it's because lives are very different. Yeah.
Because when you think about it, like folks from my generation, we were the generation that started out fully analog and transitioned to digital. So, for someone like me in my age, I've seen that transition, just exactly what you talked about. When I was young, we all piled up in the car and we went to Walmart, or, we went to, your big box stores.
Yeah.
I said names. I wasn't supposed to say
No,
names.
you're good. You're good.
But now, and I think I was saying this to you, Liz, just the other day, if you go to the mall in Waldorf, or even to some of our, large big box stores, even 10 years ago, this time of year, you wouldn't be able to find a parking space.
Yeah.
I was just out there last week and the parking lots are empty. And that's not because the economy is back. It's when I go home, every single house has 1 or 2 or 3
Boxes
packages.
sitting, yeah.
And it's just the way the economy's changed. So we have to react to that as a government. We have to make sure that the code is working for the changing economy. And there's a lot of facets to that.
Yeah.
And, it is striking a balance. The other part is keeping Charles County unique. What makes Charles County special, keeping that special. What works for our residents in Waldorf is not necessarily what's going to work in Nansemore or Hughesville. And so we have to take that into account. And the zoning code is what makes the comprehensive plan a reality. So if it's not matching our vision,
That was the point. Right.
And if it's not, and it may not even be that, it's kind of like trial and error. If you put a code provision in there and it's not working like you thought it was going to do, it's time to make some changes.
Right.
And we have a lot of data to tell us what some of those things are that we have internally. But we also need the public to tell us what.
I think that balance of this is what the data shows and this is what we're hearing, because they don't always align, which is what makes community engagement so interesting.
Right?
Yes. Liz, you were going to say something?
No, that's just such an important facet of planning. And I think that reaching out to people, understanding the fact that, yes, the community has evolved, population has changed, population has grown. And I think the important part of it is still, as we're looking forward to the vision, we still need to make sure that we're folding in some of the interests of the past, because there are things that were historically what makes Charles County so unique.
Right.
So,
and why people wanted to come here
why
or
want to be here,
stay here in the first place. Yeah.
I think
Because
that's
preservation was a big part of that.
Yeah.
It's a big part of it.
And I think a lot about one of the things that makes community engagement tough about this, and that I'm hoping, us doing the podcasts like this, the great work that your division does to get out there and talk about it, is that I think sometimes people don't realize what planning is or what zoning is until they bump up against the wall of it.
Right.
So it's kind of like what we say about our Department of Emergency Services. You don't think about them until the day you have to call 911 and you hope they show up. So I'm hoping that as people are listening and watching this, it's the idea that this isn't just, I think sometimes there's a stereotype of like the people who are going to be involved in the planning and the meetings are because they've had a bad experience and that this is their chance to, and that's true.
It's true.
But it's also everybody's chance to have that investment. And Liz talks about this all the time of like the zoning code is there, our codes are there so that Charles County is a place where people want to be.
The rules and the vision are shaped by the people that show up. And if you're only hearing the bad things, that's what's going to shape the vision. We also want to hear the good stuff. But you brought up an important point. A lot of times people don't bump up against zoning. People don't bump up against planning until they're trying to do something. And then it turns out to be a negative experience.
Right.
So that's another part of this zoning code update that we're trying to do. I live in this world. I live and breathe it every day. And so does Liz and everyone else that works in planning and growth management. We want to have a code that is something to where someone who doesn't bump up against it every day can open it up, read it, and understand what it means. And because I'll be honest, when I first started in planning, the first time I read a zoning code, I said, what is this gibberish?
Right.
And I didn't have Google to tell me what it meant. But so that's a really big part of this code update is just making it accessible to people.
I think that's wonderful, because I do think, again, and we talk about this a lot, government is complicated, government is overwhelming, and we need it, and it has a purpose, but it can be off-putting. So the more we can do to not make it feel like it is a chore for you to be engaged with your government, or that you have to understand things at a certain level. And I love that level of accessibility.
And I'm going to use that to just catapult into the other thought, which is if you do have a question about the code, like I said, we do need to update it so that it is more readable, but it's not going to happen overnight. And what we want to make sure people know is, yes, we're planning our vision for tomorrow, but if you have a question about it today, come
Get it
to
today.
Yeah, please ask the questions. And I think that keeps people from violating the codes, finding themselves in positions they don't want to be in, being told that awful thing, no, you can't do that, and you've already invested thousands of dollars.
Right.
So an ounce of prevention.
Yes.
The cure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I think that's wonderful. And we'll make sure that in the show notes, there's all that information so if anybody listening or watching is saying, well, I actually did have a question about, they know to reach out and we'll make sure they can find that. Along those lines, Tony, we've talked comp plan, which is huge. We've talked zoning code update. How would people get involved in that? So where do you want to direct people's attention if they're listening or watching this and going, you know what, I think I would like to show up to that community meeting. I think I would like to listen to that webinar.
Sure. So our webpage has a wealth of information, and we'll be doing social media blasts, and I'm sure we'll be back on the podcast.
Yeah.
But we're actually working out the scheduling right now for a lot of open houses coming up in 2026 for the comp plan. For Charles County zoning code update, we've got a webpage. It's charlescountyzoning.com, which is super
easy
to remember. And so that's where you can get the information right now. But when those open houses come out, I encourage everybody to attend. There's going to be multiple ones. I think we're scheduling 5 in different parts of the county because we want to come to where the people are. We're also scheduling smaller focus groups with interest groups, with our HOAs, with our environmental folks, with our public safety folks, with our business community. Pretty much anyone that you can think of, we're engaging.
And then
we're trying to engage.
That diverse response, because I assume what a small business owner wants doesn't necessarily line up with what somebody in agriculture wants, which doesn't line up with somebody living in, a suburban area. So,
and we're even working with our fabulous folks in our diversity, equity, and inclusion office to make sure that we're reaching underrepresented populations, because like we said, it is everyone's voice in Charles County, and we want to do our very best not to leave any voices out.
That's awesome. So, Tony, I'm going to ask a challenging question. Let's say 2 years from now. You're 2 months in, let's do 2 years out.
Yeah.
What will feel like a success? So what would tell you like, wow, I've done it. This is feeling good. I think we're in a good place. And what are some of the scary challenges along those ways? So 2-part, tell me what success would look like. And I don't want to say, tell me what failure would look like, because it's not failure, but tell me what challenges are going to make that tough.
I think what would be some successes over the next few years is to ensure that Charles County is still financially strong, which we are today, thanks to our elected leaders and our county administration doing a very fantastic job. We've got some headwinds ahead of us, but our job as planners is to make sure that we're still economically vibrant, that we're still growing, but that we're growing at a responsible rate, that, our waterways and our are not polluted, that our highways and transportation options are keeping up with the growth. And one thing that I will plug is make sure our listeners and our viewers press the state of Maryland to get more transit options like the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit that we've been promised for a long time. We want to make sure that that comes into Waldorf because, I see Highway 210 and I see Highway 301 every day, and there's a ton of cars going up north. We need transit options for our federal workers in Waldorf to be able to have another option to get to their jobs. Those would be huge successes.
Okay.
I think. But another huge success that I think is kind of understated sometimes is just for our residents to come to us and say, you're doing a great job and we like the way Charles County is developing. And if we have that, that means we're doing our job right.
Right. And I think that's interesting that it's not, we like Charles County, or it's not, I appreciate the specificity you put in that of, we like the way Charles County is developing, because I think sometimes we just hear from people, I don't want any more change or growth. And that's unfortunately not a reasonable expectation. It's not.
Life changes.
Right. 1992 to 2026. So I think you saying, we like the way it is developing is a good stronghold.
And the growth means more, and really growth means more resources.
Right.
Restaurants, retail, Amenities are not going to come if you don't have the rooftops and the incomes to support them.
Right.
And so the more residents that we get, the more amenities that we have, but also the more resources we have as a county government to provide great recreation opportunities, to provide the fantastic services that we already provide for our residents here in Charles County. So growth is a good thing. And the last thing that you want is to be stagnant or even losing growth. And, some of our neighbors in Maryland and throughout the region are experiencing that. Charles County is very blessed to still be in a robust growth phase, even in a time when the economy is slowing.
Right.
And, but a big part of that, and I hear it, I see it on social media all the time, is making sure that we're doing it in a responsible way.
Right.
And that's the key. And, we're not always going to be perfect with it. Anything that a human touches, there's going to be, there's going to be some risk to it. But it's doing the best job that we can to ensure that we're meeting the residents' expectations.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like the challenges are just embedded in that of the growth is happening. How do we manage it? How do we get people involved? How do we get,
And it's not just a Charles County issue. Charles County is obviously the lead in Charles County. But, we've got our partners at the state of Maryland. We've got our federal government partners, and we've got our partners in private industry. We've got our partners at the school district. It is really a team effort when it comes to making sure that development happens in a way that is appropriate and responsible. So, but we've got some really fantastic people in Charles County. The team that I work with, I can't say enough good things about them. They've been amazing. They're super smart, intelligent people, and every single one of them, in my opinion, cares deeply about this county. And a lot of them have been doing it for a long time.
It's a lot of experience. I have said before that when I started working in county government in 2021, I came in with a little bit of a, I'm openly going to say preconceived notion and
bit of a chip.
Yeah, kind of like, I don't know about these government folks. I don't think I'm going to work at government for long. I'm not a government person. And I was shocked by how many of my coworkers demonstrated this just immense desire to do what's best for their community with such a work ethic behind it. And my preconceived notion was quickly dashed, which is great. It made me even prouder to live here, and I'm still here working here too. So.
Awesome.
Liz, what's something that you want? Like Tony's talked about this smart growth. I think unfortunately sometimes, Tony can sound like the optimist of this is where we're going and this is so exciting. And unfortunately, as the county attorney, sometimes you get and it didn't work. I know we've talked about in the past, what's the one thing you want people to know? And you've said it's that idea of don't invest till you know. What's something that you would want? And I'm laughing and trying to say this delicately. The most negative of the naysayers, the one who, the names who the people that contact you, the angriest folks in the room, the ones who tell you that Charles County is the worst place ever, and how have you done this? This is so unfair. What would you tell them about these next 2 years? This comp plan, the zoning code. What do you want them to know?
The negativity, which unfortunately lawyers end up really dealing with the brunt of most of the time.
It's why Tony didn't go to law school. That and the bills. It was two-part. He didn't say that, but it was also the negativity.
But I think the reality of it is that when you listen to people and what it is that they're bringing up as things which they want to say negative things about, right. It's really a reflection of the fact that we do need to take care as we are trying to help growth. Remember that there are, every community is steeped in a long history of tradition. And to the extent it is that we need to look at these next 2 years as, yes, we want to go ahead and grow, we want to make sure it is that we are looking to preserve a lot of those interesting features, those historic features, those natural features, the things it is that has made this area so very valuable and so unique. This is an amazing area where you don't have to go very far to find yourself at a waterfront. You don't have to go very far to find yourself in a nature wooded preserve.
Yeah.
The state of Maryland, as a partner, has a lot of land here that allows us to do that. So in terms of what I would say to the potential naysayers, come out and still have a voice to represent the fact that if there's going to need to be growth, it's just like watching a child grow from day to day. They change every day from day to day. And you need to go ahead and shepherd it out and nurture it to make sure it is that it represents that part of what you think is important into what it is that you're growing into. So the reality is everybody does need to come out and support and give your honest and candid thoughts. if you really want to have like dark skies and you're looking at all these developments coming up, come out and say, we don't want this development to have lights over here or exceeding certain lumens, so that therefore you can enjoy looking out at the dark sky and seeing the beautiful stars. That's what a lot of people enjoy when they're living around in rural areas. You don't have the lights. You can see that.
And I'm one of those people. I chose to live in Southern Maryland because I grew up in a small town. I like going outside in the summertime and hearing the crickets. I like being able to look up and see the stars. That's comforting. That's centering for me. It's not what everybody is into, but it's what, it's what I like. And I think a lot of people choose to live in a place like Charles County because they have that connection.
Right. I think that's, and I appreciate what one person wants is not necessarily what another person wants, but just saying no isn't as helpful as saying, it's not that I just don't want more development, it's because I want those dark skies. Okay, well, let's talk about how we can put standards in place, and to go back to the Liz Theobaldsism of these things are in place not so government can just tell you what to do, but so that Charles County remains a place where people want to live.
Very well stated. Exactly.
I mean, I really tried. I'm not sure if it's a direct quote, but if you can copyright me for it later. Okay, I got the gist of it.
It's important to know the why behind the regulation.
It's
super important. And I'll be the first to admit, sometimes we in government do not do a very good job of explaining the why.
The why. And as we said before, and the evolving why. It might have been a why 20 years ago, and it doesn't need to be anymore. So I appreciate that kind of preserving the past, remembering what's important and what's working, but also how can we adapt it. All right, here's to 2026 and beyond, a year of comprehensive planning, zoning code updates, our amazing employees who have been with us for a long time, our amazing new employees who are coming in with great energy and helping us bring Charles County along. Thank you so much for being here. Tony Felds, our Assistant Chief of Planning, and of course, Liz Theobalds, our Deputy County Attorney. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
And thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you making sure that you stay engaged and educated about all things going on in Charles County, including the comprehensive plan and zoning code updates. If you heard language or thought about topics that you want some more information on having to do with zoning, planning, permits, you can always go back and listen to our previous episodes of Cracking the Code, and there'll be more content coming in the new year in 2026. In the meantime, Charles County, take care, stay safe, and stay engaged.
Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast and want to hear more, search Charles County Government on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And be sure to like and subscribe. We're also available on YouTube. Search Charles County Commissioners. And stay connected for all county news, information, and programs by visiting www.charlescountymd.gov/stay connected.